Welcome to Africa Media Australia. You're watching the Sharadi Report. I'm Claude Sharadi. Thank you very much for watching. Today I'm talking about the federal elections. The elections are coming up very soon on the 18th of May. And obviously it's an opportunity for all Australians to cast a ballot and decide who will run the country for the next 3 years. Obviously, as all of us know, currently the Liberal Party is running the government, but they are not doing very well in the poll, and they are, if we trust the polls, expected to lose. Now, it's not yet given, and some polls even give a much narrower gap between the two parties. But I guess it is important for us as members of the African Australian community to talk about some of these things and how we are behaving on the political scene and what we should do to make the most of what we can get from the political leaders and everything else that they are offering. Now, if you are like me, you may have been in some sort of dilemma. Let me explain what I mean by that. You see, I'm not a member of the Liberal Party, nor am I a member of the Labour Party or any party. I have voted in the past both for the Liberal Party as well as for the Labour Party. I look at what policies are presented in front of me and who are the people selling these policies, and then I decide based on what I see who to vote for. Now, you may not be like me. You may be a member of the Labour Party or a member of the Liberal Party, and you always vote Labour or Liberal. But the challenge, or the dilemma rather, that I'm talking about here actually affects many people in my community. And I've had a discussion with a number of friends recently, and I thought I would put this across. Many people within the African communities are kind of torn between their spiritual and moral convictions and the policies in terms of community settlement, integration, jobs, and all other things. And now let me explain this a bit more. When you look at what the two main parties present, the Labour Party traditionally has attracted most of the votes from the African Australian community. That is because they often present very good policies that are pro-migrant, so to speak. Because of that, many Africans have been quite sympathetic to the Labour Party. However, when you look at things on the spiritual side, because many Africans actually are people of faith, whether we're talking about Christians or Muslim. So when I look at things from that standpoint, there is a bit of an issue in relation to that from the Labour Party, because they're getting too close to the Greens and all these policies about same-sex marriage and safe schools and all that sort of things. Many people within African communities do not agree with those sort of things. So when you look at things, the Liberal Party it looks more attractive for many Africans from the spiritual standpoint. But when you look at the policies that the Liberal Party often present, it's not as good as many members of the African Australian community would want. And in fact, many leaders within the Liberal Party have been in the past quite critical and quite, they've been perceived as anti-migrant because of their public pronouncements. We've had issues, for example, recently with Peter Dutton, who was in the media criticizing African communities through the commentary on African gangs, saying that people in Footscray and western suburbs of Melbourne. We've had someone like Kevin Andrews many years ago who was talking about Sudanese not being able to integrate. So when you look at it, there's been a number of anti-migrant public comments from many members of the Liberal Party. So you get to a situation where, should I vote Labour because I'm happy with their policies that help many migrant communities in many fronts, but you know, when it comes to matters of spiritual convictions, you know, I don't agree with many of their policies? Or should I vote for the Liberal Party because spiritually I'm closer to them, even though they are not all that pro-migrant? I don't know how you address this dilemma on a personal level, but I guess it is important to talk about these matters because many members of our communities go and cast their ballot without really proper consideration or sufficient consideration of the consequences of the decisions they are making and how that reflects on the policies and and how that affects their lives, their families, their spiritual convictions, their culture, and all that sort of thing. The second thing about the elections is that we should try to be a little more proactive politically, so we can make the most of what we can get from politicians. So in Australia, the community tells the politician what to do. It's not like in Africa where the politicians pretty much do whatever they want to do. So if we know how to play the game, then we can actually get a lot more coming our way from the politicians because we're giving them our votes. Many of our community leaders are not all that active politically, or maybe we should encourage more people to get involved in politics. We obviously have the example of Senator Lucy from Kenya, Kenyan born, who was able to get a seat in the Senate, and that is an encouragement. It means that if we become politically active, well, you know, we can also be in the Australian Parliament. What should we do? Who should we partner with? How should we collaborate? I know, for example, that the Indian community is, you know, amongst the migrant communities, is growing exponentially. And if we know how to play the game, we can connect with them and see how we can both leverage on our numbers to try to push for our interests. I suppose we also need to be quite proactive even at a local level. I'm very much encouraged by what I've seen over the last few years, many Africans who are running for local councils positions, you know, as councillors, and that has been quite encouraging. The next step is to see how we can play that game on a state level, and why not on federal level. I know it may be still too early, but we got to talk about it. We got to encourage the young generation to, you know, put some sort of focus on this and go for their dreams, and, you know, do what we can to land a few more Africans in the Australian Parliament. What do you think about this? What's your suggestion? How should we behave politically? How should we vote? Should we maybe even think of starting a political party? I don't know. It may or may not be a good idea. Our numbers are still pretty low because even though that, you know, the number of Africans in Australia has grown significantly over the last 5-10 years, we are now about 400,000 here in Australia, but it's still a very small number when you look at the broader Australian population. But what's the best way to go about this? How should we engage ourselves politically? I know that there's still quite a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the political game, knowing how to play the political game within our communities, having some political dexterity, communicating properly with politicians, and being able to, you know, leverage on the position we have in some local areas to push for particular candidates or particular issues and all that sort of thing. So I appreciate the time you've taken to watch this video. Feel free to share this video through your networks, and comment and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay blessed.